Okay, next up, moving right along, I like the way this is going, is Jeff Kirschner. He's the founder and CEO of Litterati. Litterati is presented on our stage maybe once or twice before. It's always around the corner, and I don't want to tell Jeff's story, but it's an amazing one. When somebody sets their mind to something to get something done in a big way, Jeff is onto something, and he's leading the pack in that thought. So it's inspiring to say the least, sir.
Thank you. Hi. This story starts with these two, my kids. I know, right? I was hiking through the Oakland woods with them, and my daughter noticed that somebody had thrown a plastic tub of cat litter into a creek. And she looked at me and she said, "Daddy, that doesn't go there." She was 4. And when she said that, it reminded me of when I was a kid growing up. I used to go to camp in upstate New York, and on the morning of visiting day, before they'd let our anxious parents come barreling through the gates, our camp director would say, "Quick, everyone, I want you to all go out and pick up 5 pieces of trash." So now you got 200 kids, each picking up 5 pieces, and within a few minutes, we had a much cleaner camp. We were effectively crowdsourced cleaning the place long before that phrase meant anything to anyone. So I thought, well, why can't we apply that model to the whole planet? That was the inspiration for starting Litterati. The vision is to create a litter-free world. Here's how we started. I took a photograph of a cigarette butt on Instagram and added the hashtag Litterati, just because. I had no bigger thought beyond that. This is that photo. And when I did that, I noticed 2 things happening to me. One, litter suddenly became approachable. For some context, I was never an active environmentalist. But suddenly, it became this artistic opportunity. The second thing was that after a couple days, I looked at my phone and I had 30 or 40 photos, and I had picked up every single piece I had photographed. And I realized that I was effectively keeping a record of the impact I was having on the planet. No clue what I could do with that information. I just thought it was cool. So I started sharing what I was doing with other people, and they started participating. Next thing I did was I went out and got Litterati.org and put up this photo gallery of all these Instagram photos that were hashtag Litterati. And one day, I started noticing people that I didn't know were joining into this community. And this photo showed up. And I was like, we made it to China. And my wife said, "Take it easy. My brother's backpacking through China. He's the one that took the photograph." But this photo made me realize that while the pictures are truly artistic, there's something much more impactful. That's all the data. So an easy way to think about it is we're able to understand who is picking up what, driven by the tag, where, there's an automatic geotag, and when, there's an automatic timestamp. So the next thing I did was I plotted all those pieces on a Google map. And as I started driving down deeper looking for patterns to emerge, I stopped at Lake Merritt in downtown Oakland. And I noticed that 90% of these early pieces that had been picked up were concentrated in the north. I had no clue why. Maybe it's because the wind blows in that direction, maybe there's more foot traffic, young kids. But what I did know was suddenly we've got some data. What if we could just have a conversation with the city of Oakland and say, here's where more litter is showing up, maybe we need to put more trash cans in that area. The idea early on was, could we use Instagram to clean the planet? One level deeper, each one of those pins represents one piece that had been picked up by someone in the community, and my kids go to school right in the bullseye. The problem became very tangible. Fast forward a few weeks, this community starts growing, and they start tagging what they're picking up, brand specifics. Lots of opportunities to have conversations with brands about forming more sustainable packaging and running campaigns. This is the impact this community has had so far. 175,000 pieces that have been mapped, cataloged, and picked up. And you know what? The truth is that's small. Part of the reason that we've been able to grow is that we've received quite a bit of press. And I think part of the reason that's happened is because this is a problem that affects every single one of us in every community around the world. I don't want to get there. Here's the reality. This is a river called the Citarum in West Java. Most people just refer to it as the river of plastic. Anybody heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? If you haven't, talk to me afterwards. You might not be happy about what I tell you. And then there's famous pictures like this one of dying albatross who are mistaking plastic for food. And they're dying on places like the Midway Atoll, a group of islands that are about as remote a point on the planet as possible. The only way I know how to attack a problem like that is one piece at a time, because I can do that. I can pick up one piece, and so can you, and individually you can make a difference. But together, we can create an impact. I'll quickly give you a couple of indications of different cohorts, different groups we've started working with. The environmental group started reaching out for a number of reasons, one of which was they were really interested in the data of what our community was finding. Then we started working with some brands. Whole Foods was the first to approach us. We ran an Earth Day campaign. You picked up one piece and brought in your Litterati photo, you got a free cup of coffee. Cities were the ones that were the most interesting, and I'll give you one example. The city of San Francisco called me and said, listen, in 2009 we ran a study. We wanted to understand what percentage of litter were cigarettes. They used that to inform a tax on all cigarette sales. So they put people in the streets with pencils and clipboards and came up with a number, and that informed a tax of 20 cents. They then got sued by Philip Morris, who didn't like their data methodologies. So they called us and said, can you tell us if this is a cigarette or not? And I said, we could tell you if it's a Marlboro or a Camel or a Parliament. And we can provide an analytics that include geotagging and timestamping. And so we did. It was the first revenue that we had ever received. 32 sites that we did to give them specific analytics. And during that process, I learned two things. One, Instagram's not the right tool, so now we've built an entire app and a back-end platform to handle that kind of data and build a community. And two, if you think about it, every city in the world has a litter profile. Oakland's got one, Amsterdam's got one. They don't know what they are because no one's ever done the work. But imagine if we all of a sudden knew what was exactly on the ground. How might we change this problem that impacts our economy, the environment, poisons our food system, and degrades communities? And the last group I'll tell you about are schools. Because really, if you're going to create transformative change, who better to do it with than our kids? One example, John C. Fremont Elementary School in Modesto, California used Litterati to pick up 1,247 pieces of litter on their campus, 4th and 5th graders. But because of the data, they were able to understand that the most common form of litter on their campus were the plastic straw wrappers from their cafeteria. So these 4th and 5th graders went to their principal and said, why are we still buying individually wrapped straws? And they stopped. Insight that led to an action that's going to make a difference for the rest of their future. And what's cool is that when you have all these brands and all these people and all these cities and all these schools working together towards one common goal, this map that I showed you early on today looks like this. And that's our story. Thank you very much.
Awesome, Jeff. Thank you. Hands up high.
All right, so I think it's awesome. That's
you.
really cool. I guess my question is, like, at the end when you said you went off of Instagram and made your own app, like, so, like, what's people's motivations to, like, download the app? Like, do you scroll through pictures of people's, like, litter that they picked up, and is that enough to, like, hook them to keep coming back? Because it seemed genius that you're already tapping into Instagram. I guess what was the motivation to really do your own app?
So there is no capability to scroll through other people's photos in the app yet. And we think that there's an opportunity to create some sort of feed, but it's probably going to be a curated one. And that might include a pretty picture. It might include data. It might include an impact story like the straw wrappers. But we need to figure that out. Currently, we just launched the MVP. There is no ability to scroll through. The answer to your second question is, Instagram happens to love what we're doing and, in fact, has reached out to us in partnership capabilities, but we needed to own the user experience in the end. In the long run, what we want to design is really focused on building community and collecting data in a way that, you know, if you pick up a bottle cap in Sydney and I pick one up in San Francisco, even though we are miles apart, we're both contributing to the same greater good. That's empowering. And so we're really focused on building that experience. You're welcome.
Hey, this is Stephen from Swissnex. What are your challenges in getting bigger? How are you going to get bigger?
Did you say, what are our challenges? There are many. One challenge I would say is, at the core of what we're doing is trying to influence a behavioral change, right? So this is a problem that is bigger than most people think, right? How many cigarette butts did each and every one of us step over today? How many coffee cups or candy wrappers did we walk by? So it's literally beneath our feet. And most people either A, don't notice it, B, don't care, C, think it's someone else's responsibility. I guess I just reached a point where I no longer wanted to live that way. And I guess it's funny how a 4-year-old girl can get you to see the world in a little bit of a different manner. And my belief is that if you can create a tool that empowers people, a simple tool that empowers people to let them know that, you know what, you actually can make a difference, but you're not alone in this, that's the way forward. Don't get me wrong, we got a lot of work to do. It only took, 5 decades from when plastic was created to do what we've done. It's going to take 5 times as long to undo that. But if not us, then who? And if not now, then when?
Here. Super what you're doing. Just a quick question. What is your product? What are you selling?
Well, the product right now is an application and a platform. And what we're selling, although it's been interesting how it's happened, is really access to that data and the tool. So as an example, today we were approached by a group who wanted to, this was interesting because it came sort of unsolicited, they wanted just to start paying a subscription fee for annual access to the data. So that's an idea of what we're trying to sell, but honestly, our most important goal is to create a value proposition that really resonates with people. Because if we can do that, I'm confident that the money will find us or we'll find the money. We have been able to generate some revenue, like the cigarette study. We also signed a contract with the city of San Francisco to introduce Litterati into the public school system. So those things have happened, but I think we need to really calibrate our product market fit before we know exactly what the long-term sustainable model is.
All right, I have another question. Sorry.
Where are you? Hi.
I already asked one. I was just thinking, so like, are you tracking data? Like, do you feel like you're impacting or decreasing littering? Like, is there something about your app that's gonna, decrease litter in general so that we don't even have this problem anymore?
That would be such a wonderful thing to occur. And I'll tell you this. So that gum wrapper that's on the ground, well, maybe it was thrown there on purpose, or maybe it fell out of an overflowing trash can, or maybe it flew out of a trash truck that's overflowing. I'm convinced, how often do you see people litter? Other than cigarette butts, how often do you see people litter? It's probably not that often when you think about what's actually on the ground. Just walk outside Mighty. Walk 1 block and tell me how long it takes before you can't count anymore, right? So there's an entire systemic issue that we're battling, but our belief is that when you're going to attack a global problem, the best way to start is by first understanding it. That's how we solve today's problems, with data. And this is one problem that has no data. And so that's where we're really trying to focus.
Last question. I like your platform. Do you already have the Android version coming up? I would love to help with this, by the way.
Thank you, I appreciate that. No, and in fact, I'm looking for an Android developer right now.
I will talk later. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any last questions for Jeff? We out of time? We are out of time. Great stuff, Jeff.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
One piece at a time.